I cannot believe I am standing up here. I cannot believe I'm in this group right now. It's been 25 years since Marcy and I have been with a group of believers to encourage and to be encouraged. And we're just, again, I'm just blown away. I am a 66-year-old work in progress, and Father is completing the work that he began in me, and he's exhausted. I had no experience with religion growing up. Zip. I had a friend who was Catholic. He seemed like he was going to church all the time. I thought he was the weirdest guy. Didn't understand why they were so involved with this church thing, but no religion whatsoever. I never heard the gospel until I was in college. And I remember my roommate at the time was in Young Life. We were on the tennis team together at Kentucky, and one night he's reading his Bible and he kind of shifts on over to where I'm laying on my bed, and he said, "John, I want to share something with you." I said, "Okay, whatever, Ray." And he starts reading, I think, John 3:16, and I stopped him in the middle of that, and I said, "Ray, you need that, but I don't." So that just kind of shut all that down. And then 3 or 4 years later, also still in college, I was on the 6-year program. I heard, I guess, a better version of the God. God had just prepared me at that point to receive what I had heard, this version of the gospel. I don't remember it all at this time, but so anyway, then I accepted Christ at that point, and he put a real hunger in me to get into the Word. But my focus in getting into the Word was finding out what all the do's were and what all the don'ts were. That was my focus, was on behavior. I'm a Christian now. I need to clean up my behavior. And so I went through that phase, and I was, judging myself, but also judging all these other people. And after a while, I wore myself out, and I wore all them out, and had no friends. And so I went from this city dog. I love this analogy. The tied up city dog to this country dog. So I went from all this perfect behavior, not perfect in my mind it was, and I just let loose. And I was just a party animal for years and years, and went through this cycle. I don't know if you've been there before, but I was called a backslider or backsliding and all that. But I went through this cycle of the party animal, and then guilt and shame and self-condemnation for how awful I was behaving. And then I would, has anybody went through recommitting yourself to Christ? So I went through that, and then after a while, when I felt good enough about myself again, then I went back into partying. And it was just this cycle of around and around and around, and it was exhausting. In 1988, by the way, I'm so old I have to have notes to remember what happened when, and I'm probably not going to even get that right. But anyway, Marcy and I married in 1988. Marcy had a daughter at that point already, 7-year-old, so I became a husband and a father immediately, and that was all Father arranging that. Us meeting is incredible. But I will tell you this, in the first 8 to 10 years of our marriage, yeah, it was bad. It was really bad. And but Father was using that to break us. I had this attitude, probably more me than Marcy, but I had this attitude that whatever whatever difficulties we're going through, it's her fault. It's because of her that this marriage is just a nightmare. But she also had that, feeling the same way towards me, which is totally understandable. But God used that to break us of some of our self-righteousness, and it helped heal our relationship when we got to the point where we can't do this, and I can't be the person you need me to be, and you can't be the person that I need you to be. And so Father, he intervened. It was painful. He was orchestrating. Look, God is sovereign, 100% sovereign, right down to, I remember watching Stephen one time on a teaching talking about atoms. God is sovereign, right down to the atomic. Every little detail of life, every little detail of your life, he orchestrates it all. It's all part of his perfect plan. You may not feel like it or be aware of it at the time, but he's orchestrating all of that. So anyway, Marcy and I ended up at First Baptist Church of Atlanta back then in the mid-90s, maybe. Dr. Stanley, I don't know if you're Charles Stanley, familiar with him. We loved it there. We had a real hunger to be involved with the church and all that. We became leaders in something called Growing in Grace. We enjoyed that very much. And Father was just building this passion in me to know him and to get the word out about grace. It's kind of like our entry level experience on grace. So then, crazy enough, he puts this desire in me in particular to start with to go to seminary. So yes, I went to seminary. We moved to Fort Worth. We had very successful careers in Atlanta at that time, but it was like, nope, seminary. So we go down to Fort Worth and spent 3 years there. And while we were there, we met Bill and Annabelle Gillum with Lifetime Guarantee Ministries. I don't know if any of you remember them or not, but just a sweet couple, and Preston Gillum, and they brought us on board with their ministry. Marcy and I traveled the country and spoke, and we helped with the ministry itself. I handled marketing. Marcy was operations, I think, and all that. But anyway, so we did that with the Gillums. We met Steve McVeigh with the Grace Walk Ministries. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Hit it off with Steve. At the end of seminary, we wanted to leave Fort Worth. Who would know? Sorry if anybody's from Fort Worth and loves it there, but we did not. So we had a choice to go anywhere we wanted. We decided we wanted to go to Bloomington, Indiana. Steve said we could open a Grace Walk office there, and I can't, my math is bad. Where am I right now? I'm 22. Okay, all right. So we moved to Bloomington, Indiana, and opened up Grace Walk office there. And we again did more public speaking and conferences, et cetera, a lot of stuff on marriage. And then at some point, I got a book and we were really just embracing grace. We got this book from a guy named Robert Capon. And I think he was a Catholic priest. I'm not sure. But anyway, in this book, it was Noon to Three, I think it was called. In this book, he was talking about God saving all, and that from his perspective. But it was kind of the first introduction that we had to this amazing possibility here that he would save all. And so I started reading that book, and then it just snowballed from there. And I'll tell you this: like, we did not ask God to show us that he will save all. He imposed it on us. He infused it into us to the point where now we have this ministry that's not teaching that. We're not teaching that. But we're teaching a lot of grace, and we have a lot of supporters that love our message of grace. But then we start sharing this thing. We cannot not share it. So we have this newsletter, we had a discussion forum, we had a website, and like Mark was saying, like, these people need to hear this. They're going to be blown away. And they were blown away. And so was our ministry. It was blown away. So it was a wonderful and it was an awful experience. People that we love you so much, and we just took so much hate, unfortunately, from a lot of people that we didn't expect, and it was awful. Eventually, we shut down the ministry. Financially, we couldn't do it. We moved back to Atlanta, picked up on our careers, etc. I will tell you this: that from being severed from our own ministry and then every other church environment, Father has grown us more, totally apart from those environments. He has done incredible things in our hearts and in our minds. Things about like the eons and the mortality of the soul, the two different gospels, the lie of eternal conscious torment. I can go on and on and on. He did all that like when we're just doing our jobs and just living life. And just so grateful, just so very, very grateful. Past 2 years, so much through Clyde and all the other resources you see up here. This is what is wonderful about what Clyde is doing. It's not one person that we're all dependent upon to learn truth. There's a variety of people. You just read through it and let Father either convince you it's true or it's not true. But I love the variety here. But the last 2 years, we've been learning so much about Father. No longer God off in some place a gazillion miles away with the gray beard, or whatever. It's Father as Daddy. It's Father as Abba. This intimate relationship with Him. And Marcy and I, every morning we get up and we're like, "Morning, Father. What do you got today?" and we have no idea. We have no idea what's coming. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. I'm still learning. I'm still growing. There's ups and downs. I have times. I was talking with Keith Martin, not that Keith Martin, but the other Keith Martin. Yeah, there's 2 Keith Martins here, by the way. I don't know about you guys. There's times when I am hungry. I'm so hungry for the Word. I mean, I just want to devour it, and I'm just in it all the time. But you know what? Then there's other times when I don't need to be in the Word, and that's okay. It's a time of just resting. Just being, you're so settled in your mind about whatever it is God wanted to settle in your mind that you don't need to be in the Word all the time. So you don't need to feel guilty about that. By His grace, I'm expecting deeper faith, deeper trust, deeper realization of His sovereignty. That's also what He's just pounding into me too. I'll share about that here in a little bit. But the sovereignty of God, I'm so grateful. Like when Clyde was up here and Mark was up here just talking about the sovereignty of God, I'm like, oh, that's what I need to hear right now. I don't know if you do or not, just being selfish about all this, but His sovereignty is so crucial, really is, to your peace of mind. Yes. And I'll share a little bit about that later, but I think my time's up. So anyway, thank you.